this Epstein Files thing. And sorry if that's an incongruous and clunky thing, but like I said, it's odd, isn't it, sometimes where things are happening where actually I want to take this off. This is nothing to do with Good Morning Portugal. This is more of a personal uh, matter, I suppose. I just want to say here. It's not just specifically the Epstein Files. It's how, as I mentioned before, that's it for GMP for our live stream this morning. Just going to let off a bit of steam now, as you might want to as well, with the kind of more bigger picture situation. And to call it news is part of the problem. This is, you know, when it's compartmentalized as news, it's kind of psychologically compartmentalizing, literally, isn't it? That it's like something we don't have to deal with if we don't want to deal with it. And you know, I guess you don't have to deal. You don't have to have your face rubbed in things that are happening in terms of world events. But I can't not speak about it. It's really bizarre to me what's happening at the moment. We have these, as well as our own meteorological emergency here in Portugal at the moment after Storm Kristin. We have a global political storm going on, don't we? We have what to me are looking, and I've said this before, you know, we're not strangers to talking about this here on the Good Morning Portugal show in our community, that we are going through some incredible global shifts at the moment. Bear with me a minute. Yeah, there is something going on, I would say, for humanity on a larger scale. And some things are very symptomatic of that, aren't they? You know, there is, and this hasn't been said, as far as I'm aware, among our community. And I'm talking in terms of how, you know, we are in a international storm, if you like, of a stormy situation of turbulence and transformation for humanity. There was a huge crash of gold and silver, precious metals, and we saw a bank closure in the United States, as well as all the domestic trouble in the United States. There was a big crash of precious metals and Bitcoin, I believe, yesterday. And these, excuse me, all of these things are symptoms of incredible seismic shifts that are analogous with this, you know, the weather patterns and how we're being battered weather-wise. I think we're being battered emotionally and psychologically at the moment beyond the weather situation. That's why I've taken everything off the screen that's anything to do with Good Morning Portugal. This is me personally speaking about this as a member of this community and a personal set of opinions on this. And feel free to pipe up and say what you have to say, as is the way here in our community. You know, as long as you stay legal and respectful, I think we can pride ourselves on having different opinions and robust opinions. But I really don't get it how we are, you know, one big part of the storm, the information storm, and the psychological war on our consciousness, if you like, are these so-called Epstein files, where apparently I saw figure 3 million, 6 million. Let's go with 3 million pieces of paper in an investigation that's been going on for years, and all that's resulted in. And incidentally, when I looked up 6 million, I asked Grok, going back to the space Nazi, not my words, but again, this is all part of this, you know, this ideological war that's going on, that is the front end, that is symptomatic of something that's deeper, that I think is going on for all of us, and why we need to stick together and stay connected as best as we possibly can on the highest level for our future good and for our future benefit. Let's not get hacked down by these low-level ideological battles that are just killing people literally around the world. Now's the time to rise above it. If ever there was a time to rise above it, this is the time to rise above it. And this huge symptom of a world in which we've believed that is proving itself to be not only illusory, but absolutely disgusting. You know, the thing that we've put our trust in is falling apart in so many ways before our eyes. You know, market crash is one aspect of that. But politically, and the people involved in politics and entertainment are supposedly being exposed. Yet, what we have with this reporting and this latest sort of bilge pump of documents, and to give you some perspective on this information that's been collected for many years now behind the scenes, that you would have thought would have brought down any civilization or its political machinery, with the sort of things that are being talked about and the people that are involved. 6 million documents, if there are that many, are as high as the Eiffel Tower. That many documents constitutes between 7,500 and 10,000 books of information. So how is it that you have, with all of that information available, of all these despicable and disgusting acts that humans are being, are we being told are capable of? we're talking about high level public officials and people in entertainment, the people who you've been brought up to look up to, and the people who you assume are running the world, and the people who you assume might have values worth, so in the world of entertainment, values worth modeling. These are role models for people, aren't they? And it turns out that perhaps some of them have been involved in the most despicable and disgusting acts imaginable to man. How is it that with such a long investigation and so many documents that might be as high as half an Eiffel Tower, or 7,500 or 10,000 documents, that we just have one woman in prison, the main perpetrator killing himself or suicided in prison, and no arrests or justice? Lots of victims who have come forward to speak of the situations they were in with these other people, none of whom seem to have been arrested or publicly shamed, humiliated, or brought to justice. This is the most bizarre, strange. There was a word I could use that is not appropriate to use at this time of day, but it is a head mangle, isn't it? It is almost a psyop in its own, a psychological operation in its own right, that is twisting your psychological melons to breaking point. And whichever way that breaking point happens, it's going to be, this is a psychologically difficult time, I think, for us. And if you're in Portugal, you've got this physical storm going on as well. I suppose what I'm saying is we need each other in the face of such a disgusting and awful proposition, which is either being used to disturb and disrupt and separate people in its own right, or is true. And if it is true, will have the most devastating consequences for human beings of this so-called civilization. And how we deal, God only knows how we deal with that en masse. And that's the proposition. I think that's where we're at. We are being led to the edge of how we deal with that, whether or not, or how any of the allegations are true. We are being brought to that being a possibility within our consciousness, and what that means to us as human beings, and how we relate to each other, and how we run the world, which to me suggests that how we run the world is not sustainable, is not working, and that is falling apart in front of our eyes as we speak. And we have to manage that process on a physical level, and perhaps more to the point, a psychological level. Now, forgive me for going into that. I'm not calling it a rant. It's not a rant. It's just a need to speak about that, and to give a space for others to speak about that, because I just think it's the most extraordinary, challenging, bizarre, and disgusting situation we find ourselves in. So I'm opening the door to that being spoken about of. Let's see what you're saying here. We've all suspected that there was a group of people, one might call them elite, who believed they were above the law, but we didn't really have the evidence. We do now, perhaps. But what are we going to do about it? The point, part of the point I'm making, Ian, is that if that is the case, this is how the world has been run, is being run, and we are still putting our trust in those people to a great extent. And even if it's not those people directly, it's not as if the people who know them and who've inherited or associated with them are calling out You know, if any of you did the things that are being spoken about, I would hang you out to dry. I wouldn't like, oh, you're my mate, I'll cover for you. That would be it. That would be a red line. Where are our red lines at the moment? We've crossed them, and yet the world, despite local circumstances, we're dealing with a blooming storm here. Um, let's say we clean up the storm and the symptoms of the storm, we go back to relying on this disgusting, toxic system that is running the world without any sense of justice for the things that we're hearing about. It blows my mind. Just a further comment. I've always been impressed by the way, Carl, you managed to keep a variety of opinions within a civilized conversation. Big up. Yeah, that this will be the biggest test of that ever. And you can hear, I'm sure, my hesitancy and efforts to articulate this, but I can't not speak about it. And I don't feel, I'm pretty sure I can't speak about it in a way that is fully expressing the sense of outrage or challenge I have about this personally. Look at the facts. Yeah, and then what? Don't just apply the. I'm not having a go at you, Chris. I'm just saying what now. What do we do with this? What are we going to do? Absolutely, Chris. I taught 20 years of critical thinking A level at the best schools in the UK, and COVID has shown me how often the masses have a silent. Okay, well, to me, Pete, it was preparation. It was a test. It was an intelligence test. But good rank. Okay, thank you. Solar boat. No, hello, Matty. What have you just walked into? It's not the Good Morning Portugal show anymore. It's Carl Munson. I'm getting a few things off his mind. No, I don't think so. We'll use the inside of an IBC if really needed. It's coming at a different part of the conversation, I think. Start by not seeing the PS Melania movie. Boycott it. Yeah, I mean, by all means, do what you think you need to do. But we are, and that's why I specifically chose to talk about these things as symptomatic that we're experiencing. If you begin to consider the causes of the symptoms, it actually addresses, I think it addresses the structure of our way of being in the world. And that is psychologically very difficult. And we will need to help each other and support each other with that. It's going to go beyond whether you think, it's right to get vaccinated or not. It really is. Like I say, the pandemic was a test, and it's very successfully split people in half. Externally, people lost friends and family, whether it's what's going on politically in America, whether it's Brexit, whether it's pandemic, vaccinations, etc. These things split people outside. And now what we're looking at, I think, is the split inside, is how you kind of look in the mirror and you see that some of what you believe, some of the structure you've inherited in growing up, that is mirrored outside as a political system, as an educational system, as a health system, is actually deeply flawed and structured. It has within it is in essence corrupt, but it's what we grew up with. We didn't know any better. And now that is being brought front and center into our faces potentially to consider and cope with. So I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is we are now moving from symptomatic, dealing with symptomatic challenges, and going into an actual causal matter. This is about our consciousness. This is about how we see the world. This is about how we structure ourselves and our personalities and our identities. And that is, I'm not going to say that's under threat, but it is in the spotlight. That is going to be deeply challenged. It is being deeply challenged as we speak. That's what we're going into. Melania movie. When is Stephen King? He's a funny bugger. But anyway, let's not get personal. One of the most depressing things of the last 10 years or so is the feeling of helplessness. We don't know what's going on. We know what's going on is wrong, but have no clue as to what to do. Yeah, absolutely. And that's not a comfortable or pleasant feeling. And it's not what you would hope, is it? As grown-ups, this is what I'm writing about in my Portugal resident column. I don't know if it's going to get published, but the headline, to give you a heads up, the headline of my article this week, and I've been very lucky. I've never had one pushback. This might be the one. And I write about a very broad range of things. This week it's about keeping mementos and stuff. It's very personal and very sort of sentimental. And this week coming is called "The Grown-ups Have Left the Building." So these people and structures that we've looked to and are a reflection of our own structures are falling apart in front of our very eyes. Not just falling apart out of concrete and metal fatigue and rust, but because they are absolutely toxic and disgusting, possibly, potentially, and the people who run them to the core. And that's what that's what my, I suppose, bottom line of my share here this morning is that on the one hand, we're being split apart as people on what we think about these issues, and we've seen it, and we've fallen out with each other, and we've managed to keep going. But beyond the falling out and the external and the symptomatic stuff is a causal struggle, a causal challenge, a structural consciousness challenge that where we really do need to look after ourselves and each other in the face of that. I guess that's the bottom line. That's what I'm trying to say here. And thank you for persisting with me, for your forbearance in this matter as I've attempted to articulate. Because sometimes it's only possible to work it out by saying it out loud. Interestingly, and that's the problem, isn't it? When you start to say it out loud, you end up in an argument potentially, and that's definitely what we've seen. People sometimes when they're saying things, they're just trying to work things out. They're not trying to belittle you or beat you with their opinion, although that goes on as well because people get scared, and that's another structure we're used to, isn't it? It's domination of other people. That's not helping. It's not working. It's not going to get us anywhere. That's we see what happens when people get dominated, and that's scaled up to the most disgusting levels. Now is not the time to dominate anybody. Now is the time to hear what people have to say, and that hearing what people say in the first instance is the beginning of connecting with their humanity, as repulsive as it might be to you, and as the first dirty water's coming out the hose pipe, on a hot day. That I love that analogy, where you haven't had a hose pipe on for a while on a summer's day, and when you open it, it's old water, it's warm water, it's not the fresh stuff that you want to refresh yourself and your garden with. That's what happens, I think, now that people are talking to each other. You're getting dirty water, dirty warm water at first, but we have to hear each other out, and bear witness to each other in I think the challenge and the struggle that's right in front of our eyes. And we can keep pretending nothing's wrong if we want to, we do, and that's part of maintaining your mental health. But something's occurring that's, I think, going to overwhelm that, just like the dams that we're looking at. That's a good metaphor. What we're holding back by pretending everything's okay and holding on to ideas that don't really serve us is going to be overwhelmed by something much bigger. Yes, they really did make that movie. Let's have a look. Okay, there's a few more of your comments, because of course, let's in this space, in this particular part of this live stream this morning, like I say, I don't want to shut anyone down. I want to hear what you've got to say. I have the luxury of criticizing public transport every day. It is a luxury, but some communities don't have public transport. However, I don't criticize the NHS. Okay, Jeff Bezos funded the whole vanity project. Apparently, if you like hats and handbags, it's a cool car. This is the Melania movie. Brett Ratner is definitely in the files and a sex offender. Okay, well, I have to be careful. I don't doubt it or necessarily promote that. I don't know. I don't know who is being named and shamed here. We have to be careful, but believe me, if anyone is proved to be a sex offender, a paedophile, or any of these disgusting things that are happening, I've so little tolerance for such people, and I can't let my emotions get the better of me with that. But I just suffice to say, I don't know how there isn't justice being served and being seen to be done at the moment, and that is a big part of this problem, isn't it? It's disgusting enough what's being alleged, but the fact that nothing is happening to bring people to justice gives us gives me the most horrible feeling of like, well, is this how this system works? God Almighty, how can this wrong be brought into the light? How does that happen? Or is the system we live in and have grown up with so rancid in its own right that it's not even possible for that to happen? And if that is the case, good God, where are we? I spent time with a young NHS doctor over the last few days. The pressure they're under is immense. No one that works in the service deserves criticism. Good on you, Chris. Yeah, and the NHS, I'm not going to criticize the NHS, but I just think it's another symptom of how it can't work, can it? It doesn't matter how much money you chuck at that thing. Its premise is wonky and questionable, that we don't take responsibility for our health, and we just rock up at a building full of other human beings and say, fix me. That's, well, I mean, I'm going off on a very particular tangent there, and this is the problem, isn't it? It becomes a problem of argument. I'm not wishing to provoke an argument with anybody, but I think we have to have the courage to see if something isn't working, why is that? Not to win a debate about it, but okay, is this really working? Is this the right way to do this? And like I said, how we look at education, how we look at health, how we look at politics, they're all crumbling edifices at the moment, and this is why they're under pressure. I think, and this is why they don't work, is because they're structurally inappropriate or dysfunctional. Thank you, OLP. Right back at you. Saw a meme yesterday that the only people buying tickets for the Melania movie were the led by donkeys filmmakers who want to give it a panning. I think the best thing to do is just not watch it, right? It's perhaps it's a big distraction. I think it's the least of our worries, quite frankly. As long as Melania is busy making movies, that's that's probably the best thing. The issue is training is very expensive, and there's no obligation to stay in the system. Hence, yeah, and again, that's very symptomatic level stuff, isn't it, Pete? And we do have to look now at why they're trained, what they're being trained. It's back to basics time. It really is. This is a dysfunctional, unsustainable system. That's not a criticism of anyone in it necessarily. Although, I mean, let's not gaslight ourselves. There are some arseholes in the NHS, and there are people who are making loads of money out of the NHS who are continuing to make the most of it for their own selves. Corruption. It's not a perfect thing, is it? It can't be. It can't be. And I think we have to have the bravery to look at all of these systems and to see whether they're serving us in the best possible way. To start the conversations. I don't think we're going to settle everything this morning on this impromptu conversation. It's a slavery protocol, Carl. Human beings are considered less than, which means they are considered a tool. They are treated less than human. Where is the light to cleanse this Epstein File? Well, we are, like I say, my article this week is the grown-ups have left the building. You can't assume that anyone else is doing this on your behalf now. We are the grown-ups we've been looking for. And, you look in the mirror and you think, who's that old giffer in the mirror? Well, that's me. And when I was young and looked at people of my age, I thought they were running things. We run things, Chris. We have to run things. We can't assume anyone else is doing it, because that is becoming foolish now. I'm sat in confusion. Why would Mrs. Trump have a movie made? She's because she can. Well, Jackie, she's got a wealthy husband who will indulge her. Which husband doesn't like to give his missus nice gifts? If I could give Mrs. Emma a movie budget, I would. I think it was on Insta somewhere. You'll probably find it. No one can find anything on Instagram. That's how they keep you busy and distracted, Coach. Many people who worked on the so-called documentary don't want to. That's hilarious. And a fun note to end on a very meaty thing that I've thrown you. I mean, to me, it's existential. To be coping physically with a storm in Portugal is one thing, but to me, what we're going through as a species, as humans in this time in history, is no less daunting, challenging, and disruptive than Storm Kristin. This is a Storm Kristin of consciousness, quite frankly, at the moment. Now you can see. Okay, I can, but beneath the anger and the ideological split are human beings wanting the best for each other and a world that works, Chris. We have to apply ourselves to the bigger issue of creating a world that works, as Buckminster Fuller once said. As long as you keep fighting with people who you're judging as less than you because they have a different opinion, we can't move the world on, I don't think. And that's not singling you out for. That's my opinion about your opinion there, Chris. Should have done Jay. He's easy to look at. Well, for some of us, Melania is easy on the eye, but that's not to say she should have her own documentary film. Oh my goodness, the sublime and the ridiculous, and the absolute, biggest issues and challenges facing humanity that could ever be faced right here on this transmission this morning. Yes, prayers, love to all friends in Portugal. Bring it back to the reason we started this morning. Thank you again, honestly, for your forbearance on this matter. Take care, stay well, and we shall see you again tomorrow. And I'll just press the stop button there because I don't necessarily want what I've just said to be Good Morning Portugal stuff. That was very much me in this last 20 minutes. Take care. Bye for now. Ciao, ciao.